The alert siren wailed across the Vigilant, piercing the monotonous hum of systems that had become the background music of Commander Zyler's life. Years of patrolling this remote sector had dulled his senses to the point where even the ship's standard diagnostic beeps had faded into insignificance. But this particular alarm sent a cold ripple down his central spine. "Report," he commanded, his four-fingered hand adjusting the ceremonial rank insignia that always felt slightly too tight against his azure-scaled neck. "Unidentified vessel, Commander," replied Tactical Officer Nevix, her compound eyes rapidly processing the incoming data streams. "It crossed our border marker 17 microcycles ago. Unusual energy signature, configuration unknown in our databases." Zyler moved to the central command platform of the bridge, his tall, lean frame casting a long shadow across the gleaming obsidian floor. The Vigilant might be a border patrol vessel, but it still maintained the immaculate standards expected of any ship in the Cthar Empire's fleet. "Visual confirmation. Incoming now, sir." The main view screen flickered before resolving into a sharp image that caused a collective intake of breath among the bridge crew. The vessel was angular, utilitarian, bristling with what were unmistakably weapon systems. But it was the marking on its hull that caused Zyler's secondary heart to skip. UNS Dauntless. "Humans," whispered Science Officer Trazic, voicing what everyone was thinking. The word hung in the air like a toxic gas. Humans, the species that had been the subject of increasingly disturbing intelligence reports over the past 7 cycles. Reports described them as chaotic, unpredictable, with technology that advanced in dangerous directions and at alarming rates. Their expansion patterns suggested an inherent imperative to claim and colonize, regardless of prior claims. Official Cthar policy was clear: observe but avoid contact. The Empire had not survived 20,000 cycles by rushing into confrontations with unknown variables. But this was different. This human vessel had crossed into Cthar space. Protocol demanded action. Receiving a transmission, "Commander," Communications Officer Xylith announced, her voice betraying a hint of anxiety that would have been unacceptable under normal circumstances. "Put it through," Zyler ordered, straightening his posture and consciously arranging his facial scales into the neutral expression taught at the Academy for first contact scenarios. The view screen shifted to display the interior of what appeared to be the human vessel's bridge. Standing center frame was a figure that Zyler immediately assumed to be the commander. A female human, according to the briefings, though the subtle differences in their dimorphism were still somewhat confusing to Cthar sensibilities. "This is Captain Evelyn Reed of the United Nations ship Dauntless." The human spoke, her voice translated into standard Cthar by the ship's systems. "We are experiencing technical difficulties with our FTL drive and request temporary safe harbor for repairs. We acknowledge we have crossed your border and apologize for the intrusion." The human's demeanor was calm, professional, a stark contrast to the chaotic temperament Zyler had been led to expect. But the positioning of their vessel, slightly angled to present the smallest profile while keeping weapon ports accessible, told a different story. This Captain Reed was prepared for hostilities, regardless of her diplomatic words. "This is Commander Zyler of the Cthar Imperial Vessel Vigilant," he responded, carefully modulating his voice to project authority without aggression. "Your presence in Cthar space is noted. Stand by while we evaluate your request." He signaled for the transmission to be muted and turned to his senior staff. "Opinions. They could be scouts," offered Security Chief Varric, his battle-scarred scales reflecting the red alert lights. "Testing our responses, our capabilities. Or they could genuinely be in distress," countered Trazic. "The region beyond our border contains several spatial anomalies that could interfere with various FTL configurations." Zyler nodded, considering both possibilities. "Full scan of their vessel. I want to know if they're actually damaged and exactly what kind of weapons they're carrying." As his crew carried out their tasks with practiced efficiency, Zyler opened a secure channel to Supreme Command. This situation went far beyond the authority of a Border Patrol commander. The response was swift and unexpected. Rather than ordering the immediate expulsion of the human vessel, Supreme Command instructed Xyler to escort them to Outpost 7, a nearby Cthar station with repair facilities. The official reason: humanitarian assistance. The unspoken directive: gather intelligence on human technology and intentions. Re-establishing communication with the Dauntless, Xyler found himself studying Captain Reed more carefully. Her skin was a light brown, her hair black and pulled back severely from her face. Her eyes were the most expressive feature, dark, alert, and revealing nothing of her thoughts. Captain Reed, you are granted temporary permission to enter Cthar space. We will escort you to Outpost 7, where you may conduct your repairs. Be advised that any deviation from the course we provide or any activation of weapons systems will be considered a hostile act. Reed nodded, her expression unchanging. Understood, Commander. We appreciate your assistance. As the communication ended, Xyler couldn't shake the feeling that behind those inscrutable human eyes, Captain Reed was calculating something entirely different from what her words suggested. The journey to Outpost 7 was conducted in tense silence. The Dauntless followed the prescribed course perfectly, maintaining a respectful distance from the Vigilant. Scans revealed that the human vessel was indeed experiencing some kind of drive malfunction, though the exact nature of the problem remained unclear due to unfamiliar technology. Outpost 7 grew from a point of light to a gleaming structure as they approached. While not one of the Empire's major installations, it was still an impressive display of Cthar engineering. A sprawling complex of interconnected habitation rings and research facilities orbiting a barren moon. Human vessel will dock at the auxiliary maintenance bay, ordered Station Commander Rexel upon their arrival. Security protocols Omega in effect. Minimum contact monitored at all times. Xyler observed the docking procedure from the Vigilance bridge, watching as the Dauntless maneuvered with surprising precision for a supposedly damaged ship. Once secured, a delegation was cleared to board the station. Captain Reed, her chief engineer, and a security officer. All were scanned for weapons and communication devices before being escorted to the station's administrative level. The first face-to-face meeting with humans was an exercise in cultural dissonance. Reed and her officers seemed simultaneously direct to the point of rudeness and diplomatically evasive. They made eye contact in a way that felt challenging to Cthar's sensibilities, stood closer than was comfortable, and frequently interrupted each other, a behavior that would indicate serious hierarchy dysfunction in Cthar society. Yet their technological acumen was immediately apparent. When discussing the repairs needed, the chief engineer, a stocky human male named Grayson, displayed an intuitive understanding of concepts that would require specialized training among Cthar engineers. Our quantum manifold experienced cascade failure when we passed through an unusual radiation field, Grayson explained, displaying diagrams on a portable device. We need to recalibrate the phase inductors and replace several burnt-out isolinear conduits. The Cthar engineers assigned to assist them exchanged glances. The terminology was unfamiliar, but the principles described suggested an approach to FTL travel that differed significantly from Cthar methods, potentially more efficient in some respects. Meanwhile, the human security officer, Lieutenant Quan, maintained a watchful stance that mirrored Varric's own vigilance. His eyes constantly scanned the room, lingering a fraction too long on access panels, security stations, and environmental controls. We appreciate your hospitality, Reed was saying to Station Commander Rexel. We shouldn't need more than 3 or 4 days to complete repairs. That seems extensive for the damage you've described, Rexel noted, her translator not quite capturing the subtle inflection of suspicion. Better to be thorough when you're a long way from home. Reed replied with what appeared to be a facial expression of goodwill. Though Xyler had been briefed that human expressions were notoriously complex and often misleading. After the initial meeting, Xyler met privately with Intelligence Officer Lissa, a slender Cthar with unusually pale scales and a rare genetic gift of enhanced empathic sensitivity, a trait that made her invaluable in diplomatic situations. Your impressions? He asked. Lissa's inner eyelids flickered in thought. They're hiding something. The captain especially. Her outward calm masked significant tension, and their security officer was cataloging our facilities, not protecting their delegation. Preparing for potential conflict? Possibly. Or gathering intelligence. She paused. But there's something else, a sense of urgency that doesn't match their stated need for routine repairs. Zyler nodded slowly. Supreme Command wants us to learn whatever we can about their technology while they're here. But we need to be careful. Increase surveillance, especially around their repairs. And I want to know if they attempt to access any station systems. He didn't have to wait long for confirmation of their suspicions. Within hours, security protocols detected an attempt to access the station's astronomical database from a terminal near the repair bay. The culprit was the human chief engineer, who claimed he was looking for galactic repair facility directories to source replacement parts. Shortly after, Lieutenant Quan was observed asking pointed questions about Cthar shield harmonics to one of the station engineers, framing it as casual professional curiosity. Most concerning, passive scans detected sophisticated mapping devices concealed within the standard equipment the humans had brought aboard. Supreme Command's response to these reports was mixed. Some advocated for the immediate expulsion of the humans. Others, intrigued by the glimpses of human technology, pushed for continued observation and data collection. The final directive to Zyler was frustratingly ambiguous. Maintain the current arrangement while gathering evidence of hostile intent or valuable intelligence regarding human capabilities. 3 days into the human stay, everything changed. The Vigilance long-range sensors detected an unusual energy pulse emanating from a nearby nebula within Cthar territory, a chaotic cloud of gas and particulate matter previously considered worthless and hazardous to navigation. Pulse pattern is irregular but contains coherent elements, reported Science Officer Trazik. Definitely not natural in origin. Before Zyler could fully process this information, Captain Reed requested an urgent meeting, claiming their repairs were progressing ahead of schedule. When they met in Rexel's office, the human captain brought up the nebula without prompting. Our sensors picked up some interesting gravitational anomalies in that nearby nebula, she said, displaying data on her device. Could be useful for calibrating our FTL resonance chambers. Would your protocols allow us to gather some readings before we depart? The coincidence was too perfect to be credible. Somehow, the humans had detected the same energy pulse that the Vigilant had only just discovered, or perhaps they had known about it all along. A secure communication from Supreme Command complicated the situation further. Rather than ordering the humans to depart immediately, Zyler was instructed to investigate the nebula phenomenon cautiously, keeping the humans under surveillance, but not revealing that Cthar sensors had also detected the energy pulse. The rationale was clear. Supreme Command suspected a connection between the anomaly and the humans' true purpose in Cthar space. If the nebula contained something of value or strategic importance, they wanted Cthar forces to secure it first. Zyler developed a plan that walked the precarious line between his orders and pragmatism. He proposed a joint scouting mission to Reed, framing it as a standard risk assessment of a nebula before allowing Dauntless to depart through that sector. Safety protocols, he explained. We wouldn't want your repaired vessel to encounter new problems. Reed agreed with suspicious readiness, even offering the assistance of human sensor technology, which she claimed was particularly effective in chaotic environments like nebulae. A joint shuttle mission was arranged, including Zyler, Intelligence Officer Lissa, Captain Reed, and Chief Engineer Grayson. The nebula loomed before them like a writhing storm cloud, illuminated from within by flashes of energy that painted the shuttle viewports in shades of crimson and violet. Navigation immediately became treacherous as particulate matter interfered with standard sensors. However, Grayson deployed a modified sensor array that seemed remarkably effective at filtering out the ambient chaos. Frequency-shifting algorithmic filters, he explained when Zyler inquired. We developed them for mapping unstable stellar nurseries. The technology was impressively advanced, perhaps more so than equivalent Cthar systems. Zyler filed this observation away for his report to Supreme Command. Following the energy readings led them deeper into the nebula, where visibility reduced to near zero outside the shuttle. They relied entirely on instruments, the humans and Kthar each monitoring their respective systems while sharing only the minimum necessary data. Energy source ahead, announced Lissa. Massive power signature, but fluctuating wildly. As they approached, the nebula gases parted to reveal something that none of them had anticipated. Suspended in space was a colossal structure, clearly artificial, yet bearing no recognizable design elements of any known civilization. It appeared ancient, partially damaged, with sections that seemed to phase in and out of normal space-time. Pulses of energy radiated from its core at irregular intervals, creating the signature they had detected. That's... Reed's voice trailed off, her usual composure momentarily fractured. Not of Kthar origin, Xyler confirmed, equally stunned. Nor human, I presume? No, she whispered. But we've seen something similar before. Once, the artifact dwarfed their shuttle, extending for what must have been several kilometers. Its surface was covered in patterns that might have been writing or circuit pathways, glowing with internal energy. Certain elements seemed vaguely reminiscent of precursor technology, the ancient race whose artifacts occasionally surfaced throughout the galaxy, but with distinct differences that suggested a separate origin entirely. As they circled the structure, scanning cautiously, the energy pulses suddenly intensified. The artifacts seemed to react to their presence, the rhythmic emanations becoming faster and more powerful. "We need to back off," Xyler ordered. "Something's happening." But before they could retreat, a focused beam of energy lanced out from the artifact, engulfing the shuttle in scintillating light. Systems overloaded instantly. Control panels sparked and went dark. The shuttle drifted, powerless, as the artifact's emissions continued to intensify. "Backup systems failing," reported Lissa, working frantically at her console. "Core containment destabilizing." Through the chaos, Xyler noticed something strange. Grayson, the human engineer, was not attempting to restore systems. Instead, he was rapidly downloading data from the shuttle's sensors onto a human device, his expression a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "What are you doing?" demanded Xyler. Reed and Grayson exchanged glances. In that moment of crisis, the carefully maintained facade cracked. "This isn't a random encounter," Reed admitted, her voice tight. "The Dauntless was specifically tasked with tracking these energy signatures across the galaxy. We believe they're connected to a lost human colony ship, or possibly a precursor network relevant to humanity's future. The FTL malfunction was deliberate," Grayson added. "We needed to investigate this specific energy signature once our long-range sensors detected it within your territory." Before Xyler could respond, the shuttle lurched violently. Outside, the artifact's energy emissions had reached critical levels, the structure itself beginning to phase more rapidly between states of matter. "It's becoming unstable," Lissa reported. "If it releases all that energy at once, it will create a shockwave that could destroy everything within this nebula," completed Grayson, "including the shuttle and possibly even reach Outpost 7. Reed turned to Xyler, her expression grave. "We have technology that might stabilize it, a quantum resonance damper developed from similar encounters. But it requires direct interface with the artifact's energy matrix, which would reveal classified human technology." Xyler understood immediately. "Yes, and require your assistance with the interface." Xyler faced an impossible choice. Standard Kthar protocol expressly forbade sharing sensitive data or allowing interface with alien technology. But if the artifact destabilized completely, they would all perish, and potentially many more on Outpost 7. The artifact pulsed again, more violently. Warning alarms blared across what remained of functioning systems. "Containment failing," reported Lissa. 2 minutes to critical overload. Xyler made his decision. "What do you need from us?" Working with desperate speed, they established a makeshift interface between human and Kthar technology. Grayson produced equipment that had clearly been prepared for exactly this scenario, while Lissa provided the necessary Cthar access codes and technical specifications, guided by her intuitive understanding of energy patterns. Cultural differences created friction even under the pressure of imminent destruction. The humans worked with a chaotic urgency that seemed haphazard to Cthar's sensibilities, while Xyler and Lissa's methodical approach frustrated the humans' desire for immediate action. "Connect the phase inverter directly," Grayson shouted as another pulse rocked the shuttle. "That violates containment protocols," objected Lissa. "Protocols won't matter if we're vaporized." With seconds remaining, they completed the hybrid interface. Grayson activated the human device, a small cylinder that expanded into an array of crystalline components that somehow bent light around them. It connected to the Cthar systems, creating a feedback loop that projected a counter-resonance field toward the artifact. For one terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then, gradually, the violent pulses began to subside. The artifact's phasing slowed, then stabilized. The immediate danger passed, though the structure continued to emit energy at a reduced level. As systems slowly came back online, the artifact transmitted a final, complex data burst. Not a beacon, but a warning. The information was fragmented, corrupted by age and damage, but what they could decipher sent a chill through everyone present. "It's talking about some kind of external threat," Grayson muttered, staring at the partial translations. "Something ancient that this network was designed to monitor or contain." Lissa nodded, her eyes fixed on the Cthar translation matrix. "Our systems recognize elements of this language structure from precursor artifacts, but there are significant differences. Working together, they determined that the artifact was part of an ancient monitoring network created by an unknown civilization that predated both humans and Cthar. The network had been designed to contain or warn about some kind of threat from beyond the galaxy's rim, a threat that had apparently prompted this advanced civilization to create these immense structures as a defense or early warning system. Most disturbing was the discovery that neither species' technology could fully decode the warning alone. The data fragments only made sense when human and Cthar systems worked in concert, each filling gaps in the other's understanding. The return journey to Outpost 7 was conducted in thoughtful silence. The immediate crisis had passed, but its implications were staggering. Aboard the station, the atmosphere had transformed. The humans had achieved their objective, identifying the source of the energy signatures, but had discovered something far more complex and potentially dangerous than anticipated. The Cthara's security had been compromised, but they now possessed partial knowledge of a potential galactic threat and valuable insights into human capabilities and motivations. In the station's main conference room, Reed formally requested a temporary alliance or joint research initiative to decode the warning. Xyler transmitted a full report to a stunned Supreme Command, recommending cautious engagement. "This changes everything," Reed said quietly as they stood before a display showing the fragmented warning data. "My mission was to determine if these energy signatures could lead us to lost human colonies or beneficial technology. Instead, we may have discovered a threat to both our species," Xyler finished. "It would be easier if we could go back to considering each other the enemy," Reed observed with a wry expression that Xyler was beginning to recognize as her version of gallows humor. "Perhaps, but the artifact responded to both our technologies working together. That suggests neither of us can address this alone." Around them, human and Cthar personnel were already beginning to work in mixed teams, the earlier suspicion not forgotten but temporarily set aside in the face of a greater unknown. The Dauntless remained docked at Outpost 7, no longer precisely a prisoner or merely a guest, but an unwilling partner. As Xyler studied the incomprehensible patterns of the ancient warning, he reflected on how quickly circumstances could change. The alert that had started this chain of events, enemy warship identified, humans are here, now carried a different, more complex meaning. The humans were not simply enemies to be identified, but potentially necessary, complex factors in a larger galactic equation. Whatever lay ahead, it would require something neither species had anticipated: cooperation. The thought was both unsettling and, in ways Xyler could not fully articulate, strangely hopeful. Reed turned to him, extending her hand in what he recognized as a human greeting gesture. After a moment's hesitation, Xyler accepted it, his scaled fingers meeting her smooth ones in a symbolic first step toward an uncertain future. "To unlikely allies," she said. "And common burdens," he replied. The ancient warning continued to scroll across the screens around them, a fragmented message from the distant past about dangers yet to come. Together, they watched it in silence, united by the knowledge that the true challenge was only beginning.